Hello, boys! I'm back! Don't worry, this is not gonna be like a epilogue or an extra video from the trilogy that I did before, but this is gonna be more of an isolated video, unless I make more of it and do another reply like before, but no, I digress. This will be just a little bit of a different area, same topic, but different area as well. So, this will be mainly focusing on the codexes, as I've done it before. Now, when it comes to codexes, they tend to be more reliable than the novels. Why? Because the codexes set the foundation of the setting. They are the ground rules of the universe. And also, when you look at the codexes, they tend to be very pretty much like just copy-paste after like, let's just say 5th edition. So, they tend to be very consistent and reliable, depends where you're looking at. Now, when it comes to novels, they are not reliable. Why is that the case? Well, novels focuses on the characters and story, not the faction. Novels do not focus on, this is the Imperial Guard, this is what the weapons are using, this is what regiments they're running and all that. No, that's what the codexes are for. They explain to you about the universe, they explain the factions that are in that universe and what they're running, what they have. That's why codexes tend to be much more reliable than novels. And also, when it comes to novels, it's also, you have to like realize like who is writing those novels and what their intentions are. So it tends to be a lot of a slippery slope when it comes to the novels itself. So that's why I don't heavily rely on too much on one novel or another, because it becomes just a fucking drama fest and becomes much of a headache than to just go back to where it all began, and that becomes with codexes. Also, when it comes to the codexes, they are the main setting of the 40k universe. If you don't understand the setting of 40k, then what makes you think that the novels that you're reading later on are reliable or good? Because people who tend to read the novels as of today, they focus more on this is a good book, not as is this a good 40k book or is this a good grimdark book? Not a lot of people ask those questions. And this is why, again, I'll go back to, if you don't know the setting about 40k and the main faction like the Imperial Guard, what makes you think you understand 40k as a whole, or the word grimdark as a whole? Now, as enjoyable that trilogy video was, but I noticed people are very stupid since they weren't making a good argument that I was presenting. And they prefer to go to novels or go anything else that doesn't relate to my argument or my point exactly. I do not care if I'm right or wrong. All I wanted is for you to address my argument directly without straw demanding to death, which you would do that regardless. You know what's more annoying with this video? It's this. You can't escape me! Welcome to the Hoppeldas Legion, motherfucker! I have a long range of options for you guys you can support me in. Patreon, Ko-Fi, and YouTube memberships. And from your support, it will make me more committed to do more videos. There's my stuff. They're in the video descriptions or my main channel. Might as well join the cause and be part of the Legion, brother. And to wipe off the degeneracy off this planet. That is all for this advertisement. Even though you skipped it, you fucking heretic. And now, let's get back to the video. Now, I'm gonna broaden the codexes from 2nd edition, 3rd, 3.5, 5th edition, 6th edition, 7th edition, but 7th edition is more like the expansion, nothing much. And then, gotta stop at 8th edition. Now, why not do I continue to 9th edition and 10th edition? Because no one really gives a shit, let's be honest. It's just a copy-paste and just reused cover art and just nobody cares. That's the better way to say it. No one really reads the codexes in 9th and 10th edition because, let's be honest, 10th edition right now, people just buy the codex so they can use the code just to play it on the tabletop while using the app, even though it's fucking expensive just for a single fucking code. What a joke. Now, what I'm going to do in this video exactly is I'm going to look at these codexes individually if women are in the guard are the exception or the norm. Now, obviously, I did 3, 3.5, 5th edition codexes, and obviously that's a GG easy, the exception than the norm. But people want to take the small examples and take it as the norm despite of overwhelming examples in the codexes, which then again, that is called arguing in bad faith at that point. Now, I know some would argue that I should add Rogue Trader, but as I said, 40k not being satirical video, which would count the 2nd edition Imperial Guard, that 1st and 2nd edition codexes in 40k were pretty much just experiments. They were just guys who were actually fucking around, having some fun time, trying to figure out a couple things, until they got really serious and they put everything they got in 3rd edition after cutting all that fluff and just made the best product that they did. That's where 3rd edition is. And that is why 3rd edition tends to be much more reliable than the later codexes afterwards. Well, 3rd and 4th edition, because they tend to be consistent. 5th edition, they changed it completely when it comes to the main factions in 40k. And then 6th or 7th, and then again, it's just a copy-paste, but they just added some minor details. That's pretty much it. So, let's start with 2nd edition. As surprising as it is, there's actually 0 mentions of women in this codex. Or dare I say, 0 women in the Guard. I mean, look at the cover art. The artwork's in the books. Here's the 2nd page of it. Here's the models. Here's some of the short stories that I found pretty interesting. But even though it's quite short in this one, but so far, we're having a good start already. And this is just 2nd edition. Now, as I said before, I've done already like 3rd, 3.5, and 5th edition, but I'll just pretty much to a certain extent skim through it. But most of these 3 codexes, to a certain extent, they are just the exceptions, not the norm. Keyword. People like to take rare examples from these codexes and then boom, this is normal. Thus, we have normal recruitment of women by 70% because why the fuck not? Or any other bad faith arguments or just weak arguments they're trying to put in. But as I always say, just like how they do like a bad faith argument with World War II topics, they always take some Soviet women, not even comparing against millions of men that did the dirty fighting and all that. Nope, fuck that. We'll take these rare exceptions as the normal thing. Oh yeah, women can do what the men can, and they're just equally the same, or all that bullshit they wanted to put out. And I like this is the only example people tend to focus a lot and not, you know, World War II America, World War II Japan, or, you know, fucking Britain, or any other countries that pretty much are mostly the majority of men. Like, do we tend to forget what our purpose or role in this world is? Okay, I'll go fuck myself. But yeah, nah, let's have this thing that is normal and just have them all in the front lines. As ironic as it is, that's quite disrespectful to history, not gonna lie. Alright, so let's break it down when it comes to like the codexes that I've already gone through it, but we're gonna go through it again in this video since people are fucking lazy to watch other videos that I've mentioned before, but I'll go fuck myself then. So, 3rd edition, the majority of stories and artworks that is being presented in the codex are men. Even in the cover art, they're just men. And there is that one mention of the female regiment, which they weren't mentioned later in 3.5 and 5th edition codex, so thus they might have done some changes later on, or maybe other answers that are not being mentioned whatsoever. Now, I could make a lot of speculation, but as far as I'm aware, they exist in 3rd edition, but 3.5 and 5th edition and later codexes, they've never been mentioned ever again. I'm just going to put that out. Or, in the chapter approved, there were just 2 women, thus it's just normal. No, that is what is called the exception, not the norm. Okay, since you guys are not smart when I'm talking about specific words, so I'm going to teach you the word exception. Exception. Someone or something that is not included in a rule, group, or list, or that does not behave in the expected way. Now, of course, the word norm is the opposite, which something is to be accepted, and that's part of the rule. Now, I will give an example. It's like this. The main dominant ice cream flavor is vanilla, but there is a small exception that people like chocolate ice cream, because it's like eating ass, and I don't like ass. And if you still don't get that, whatever. That is what exception is. Something that is just the small percentage that is outside of the normal rules. So, if the majority of men, that is the norm, that are being recruited because men on average are better, then you have a small exception that women might be there, but they are very rare. Specifically in frontlines, since you couldn't even fucking notice that. Now, 3.5, they're pretty much showing any females in the Guard, really. And I know there's Kydia mentioned before, and I think this was in 5th edition Codex, but I'll say this again. Where's Kydia at? The Eye of Terror. The enemy is at their doorstep. No shit they will recruit women, children, and men combined. Why? They have to train every single one of them to be prepared in the defense of Kydia. Like, hello? You know, enemy at the doorstep, so might as well grab anyone as much as possible. Hello? And it's not only recruiting everyone, they're putting fucking Space Marines there. Why? Because it's a fucking Eye of Terror. At this point, we're just losing the plot. We just don't even know how Last Stand really works. Now, if you excluded that threat of the Eye of Terror, that wouldn't happen, and thus Kydia, surprise, surprise, do you know who they will recruit first and more? Yes, it's men. Who would have thought? Hey, logic goes out of the brain sometimes. There isn't much to show in 3.5 that there are roughly pretty much the same in the 3rd edition, since 3.5 was meant to be the extra fluff, the additional rules they want to add into the army. Now, 5th edition, same thing, but as I mentioned before about the Cadia thing, that's just pretty much just a small thing out of how many things that people try to scrape that off on the side. Cool, I'll go fuck myself then. Now, I do understand that there are being massive lore changes like in 5th edition because of Mad Ward with Necrons and Grey Knights and more, and I've already did a video how Necrons have become pretty much, not to a certain extent, not really grimdark, or they've become less grimdark than what they should have been in 3rd edition. And again, when I'm talking about Necrons, or when I'm talking about certain things about these topics about 40k, I always focus on the setting of grimdark, Warhammer 40,000. But people don't really focus on setting, they usually focus on, they focus on like characters and stories. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing about setting. Stop shoving fucking stories and characters into the setting. And that's why we get so confused with, like, oh, Warhammer 40,000 is nihilistic, and they're trying to pretend that this is the setting. No. Now at this point, we're just making a massive misunderstanding, and everyone's just confusing with certain things that they think that is okay without even checking, and then once you look into that, that is not really the case. And that's why I broke down when it came to the Grim Dark that most of us got it really wrong, because we tend to think that nihilism is the setting of 40k, but that doesn't really make sense when you look at the definitions like nihilism and immoral. It doesn't really make sense. You can't tell me the Imperium is nihilistic when they are actually caring to survive. So it can't really work with setting. It's usually just it's a human philosophy that nothing really matters and we're all gonna die in the bloody sun. Okay, you first, bitch. And this is very similar when I was talking to Asmogan in Discord, and we had this very interesting conversation, and thankfully, he's the 1% that understands out of you fucking 99% motherfuckers. But it seems like when it comes to this topic about females in the guard, and I think this makes sense as well to a certain extent, is that some of you motherfuckers are complaining about narration. I'm talking about fucking setting here. We're just fucking babbling about like different things, and I think this also makes sense later on what I'm gonna be mentioning in this video, and it's that we are two of us are just complaining about two different things when I'm just mainly talking about setting. Anyways, and before I just continue babbling further down, let's continue. So, something to note here, in 6th and 7th and 8th edition, which 8th edition is just the nail in the coffin at that point, it's just a copy-paste with some tweaks added and nothing more. So in other words, this is quite of a speed run since people who did the codexes couldn't even be bothered to put in the effort, so I might as well fucking speed run it. So, 6th edition, once again, not mentions about the female guard. Artwork, please. Thank you very much, and now show me the cover. What does it say there? Men, bitch. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Now, 7th edition, pretty much you can still use the 6th edition into the 7th edition codex, but it's just using a supplement which is called the Astra Militarum Cadia. You get the drill. Supplement is just an extra thing, the extra fluff, just like how they did with 3.5 for the 3rd edition. And again, 0 women in the guard. And as much as I want, and then again, I could just show like images and all that, but it's just pretty much just reused assets after reused assets, and that's usually the issue when it comes to 5th edition and afterwards. Roughly around 6, 7, and 8th, they tend to use a lot of reusing, and even though if they make like new art, it's not really impressive because since they've just lost the plot of what Grimdark is meant to be during that time. So, let's continue here. So, 8th edition. It's just a copy-paste, man. Like, they've done fuck all in this codex. Like, fuck me. Reused art, reused other shit, and fuck me, they even reused the same fucking cover since 6th edition. Then again, there's nothing to say. It's just a reused anyways, because none really mentions of women in the codex. So, not much of that. So, even in this video, by itself, and even in expanding on that, it won't be enough for those who don't like to hear things they don't like. So they rather latch onto things that are so rare or the little exceptions, and they say this is normal, they can be in the gun, blah 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 blah, and all that shit, which they want to be acceptable, aka bad faith arguments. And then they try to shove up my face and say, boom, you see, women are real and normal in the guard. Alright, cool. Thank you for continuing this debate. It's not even an argument. Like, at this point, the problem is not intellectually. The problem is with the heart. Because people live in today's age that we are at right now, where things are acceptable around them and thinking that these are normal. And they don't see the issue, thus, when they hear someone like me breaking down as to why this thing is wrong as an example, even in the trilogy video I did, Like, people will just outright reject it even if the answer is right in front of them. AKA, they get fucking emotional real quick and tell me how am I wrong, first off, and then strawman me to death and say other shit that I never said, AKA strawman again, and go with bullshits around. They never go against my points, so they go and attack my character instead, because that's all they have. Or, if they try to go against my points, they will do it so poorly that it seems like they've never debated before in their fucking lives. Regardless, the whole point in that trilogy video, even though it was meant to be 2 videos, but hey, I did a reply, so now it's 3. And this is why I made this very specific argument, so people can answer that specific argument. Not of me being fucking right or wrong. I don't care. I honestly do not care. What I cared mostly is, can you guys address these points that I'm making or address the argument that I'm presenting here? But since most of you actually failed miserably hard on this, holy shit, thus, honestly, couldn't take you seriously, honestly. Dude, I could not take you seriously. If you're not gonna take me seriously of the points that I'm addressing and making a clear, good argument, dude, I'm not even gonna take you seriously, honestly. Right, it's like this, okay? I ask you a question, and it's just a yes and a no answer. So, people can understand that, right? So there's no twist, there's no like, aha, gotcha thing. No. I ask you a question, it's just a yes or no answer. That's it. Not what you're fucking trying to perceive that I'm trying to do or whatever, like you're in a fucking war zone. Relax. I'm just asking a question. So, that is what I want. It's just you saying yes or no. That's it. But instead of you guys, you just go the whys, the hows, or the whats, just to go around the question and not answering directly. No. Can you please focus on the question, which most of you fucking failed? You fucking failed miserably. And that's why I said before, and I'll say it again. Stay in bronze rank. And not because you think you're in ill or hell, but because you are shit and you can't accept it in trying to improve it yourself. And there's another thing that I said. If you can't answer that argument directly and trying to grab these novels or whatever other shit you want to bring out just to avoid that argument around, just to make yourself proven right, then what makes you think you're good in any other argument? I don't care if I'm right or wrong. What I care is, can you address my point, thank you? Can you address my argument of the things that I actually said and having a good faith argument? Most of you cannot do it. You can't argue. And most of you are fucking emotional. So you're not here for a, logical argument. You're here as coming in as an emotional argument. You're not coming here just to be like, yes, okay, I see the point over here. So in this part of the codex, it implies this and this and this and this. So thus, it could be implying that it's norm. No, I don't even hear that shit, man. All I hear is, fuck you! You just narrate your fucking argument just to prove yourself right. Here are the novels, and here are the characters, and so thus, there's noble women of the god. So fuck you! Okay. I guess, fuck it, okay. I guess thank you for conceding, I guess. Sure, if you're not gonna address my points of my argument, then you've already lost by default. Cool. Alright, cool. I see you have quite of a weak argument, but I've made myself as the Chad and you as the Soy Jack. I win. Now, I don't know if this video is gonna be in before or after the interview that I've done with Pontius about the females in the Imperial Guard. So, if this is after, then you already know. But if this is before, just get ready because I have planned to make an interview very interesting. Well, it's not going to be, anything, Subway Surfers or anything like that. It's just us just talking about the certain topic. But I'll make it interesting as much as possible that I can make, and hopefully you guys don't miss it. I'll make it very obvious that it's right there. But anyways, that is all for this video. You can check me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, and YouTube memberships. You can check me on Discord if you want to check out some random shit and all that. Or you can check me on YouTube community page if you want to keep yourself up to date with the videos that I make and all that. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, my brothers, and take care. Rise up!